Definitely recording, Tom? Yeah. Can everybody see and hear me okay?
Yeah, I think
great.
whoever presses record, it keeps you on, but everyone else it turns you off the camera.
Okay. Right, okay. Well, thank you for confirming that, Carly. And can you still see the slides?
Yeah, it's not turned them off, which is good.
Okay, which is good. That's a start then. Nice to see some faces back as well. Right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Digital Planning Improvement Fund Show and Tell on Thursday, the 12th of February. I'm Phil James, one of the community managers in the team, joined by Tom and Carly, who you will both know very well. Thanks both for joining. So good morning and welcome everybody. Hopefully all familiar with a show and tell, but just very quickly to run over some basics then. So if you're comfortable to do so, even though we're recording, it would be great if you could have your camera on. Just makes the recording a little bit nicer to show the face, and it really makes this much more enjoyable for the ODP community. Thank you for everybody for muting. I'm getting no background noise, but if you can remain on mute, that just really helps those that are speaking today. We've got two fantastic presentations, but I'll get our speakers to introduce themselves in just a moment. We love the show and tells to be interactive, so by all means, do raise your hand or pop a question into the chat. And as you know, in ODP, we absolutely love it if there's some emoji reactions, even when not talking. It shows engagement, it shows the value of what our guest speakers are saying. So it would be great if you can all use your emoji reactions as we go through this morning. Thank you, love it. See, there you go, already, great. And so today I'm really pleased to say that we are joined by Ben in Ashford. Ben, are you with us this morning?
Yeah, well, I'm here. Phil,
Great.
Sorry, took me a second to get my mute off there.
No, that's all right. I'm always the same. Good morning, Ben. Nice to meet you.
Yeah,
and put a face to the name. And apologies for the short notice. I had to message Ben this morning to say having Teams problems. And so Ben's going to present his own slides. We were originally doing that. And then we're joined also, so we'll hear from Ben first in Ashford. And then we're joined by Neville in Surrey Heath. Good morning, Neville. Are you also with us today?
Hiya, yeah, I'm here. Morning, everyone.
Good morning. Great to see you. Nice to also put another face to the name. You were always presenting your slides, so not too much of a short notice disruption to you. So we'll hand over in just a moment. But yeah, so we've got Ashford and Surrey Heath, and then we'll be just doing any general questions at the end as well. But certainly after Brendan's presented, there'll be an opportunity to ask questions. Right, so I'll do this really quick. I think everybody on the call pretty much knows why we're all here. So it's a show and tell. And what are show and tells for anybody where you're just joining us for the first time today? We hold these monthly. So if you're interested in doing in March or April, do get in touch. But basically, show and tells are to show the progress of how you're doing on your journey. It makes it really helpful for others to hear what's been going on in your journey and project. It's really also a great opportunity for our presenters if they want to get feedback from anyone, and do also feel free to encourage feedback in case there's something that they're doing that really resonates with you and you'd like to share your own kind of view on what work you've been doing that is similar. And then also as well, what is great about a show and tell is it very often leads into next steps and how people can get involved. So over to the presentations, and without further ado, I'm going to stop presenting, and it's absolutely over to you then, Ben, to do a proper introduction. So okay. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Phil. Let me just share my screen. Can everyone see that?
We certainly can. Amazing.
Brilliant.
We've got a really nice picture of Ashford, and we'll get you to tell us a little bit about the other picture, which looks like some sort of new office block or something.
Well, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, thanks, Phil. My name's Ben Robinson. I'm Digital Transformation Manager at Ashford Borough Council. I've been working alongside our planning department on the improvement fund project. I'm not a planner. My team have helped deliver some of the things that we've been doing for there. So as you said, Phil, that is Ashford on the left-hand side, an overhead view, and the building that you can see there, sort of in the middle, is the building that's on the right, and that's our council building that we moved to last year. And if you look closely, you can see me sitting on the 4th floor. Okay, so I was just thinking before the presentation that we've been on working on the fund now for with the ODP since 2024. So he's one of the original cohort. I actually presented a show and tell a few months in, and was looking. That was August 2024. So if there are anyone on here that sees some bits repeated, apologies. There's only so many fun facts about Ashford that I could draw on. So in Ashford, we're the biggest borough in Kent. That's land space. We're very rural. We've got a population of over 74,000 people. We've got the 6th largest rail station in England. We've got 7.5 million passengers that travel through that, and we're only 36 minutes from London, which makes us really accessible to for the southeast. We have more heritage sites than any other borough in Kent. We've got 2,395 listed buildings. We've got 42 scheduled monuments and 43 conservation areas, which is the highest concentration of protected heritage in the county. And we've also got the 2nd busiest McDonald's in the world, after one in China. I think we just sit just off the M20, so everyone coming across from the channel stops off there for some grub on the way through. We've also got the Ashford Designer Outlet, which is the largest outlet shopping centre in the UK. So if you like shopping, and we're only 36 minutes from London, then it's a good trip down. And we've also got lots of different famous residents over the years. I won't go through them all. The only real story I've got is around Vic Reeves, and I used to work in Blockbuster Video, and he never ever returned any videos when they were due, so I had a massive fine. Okay, so with regarding to this project, how we look to staff it, we had our planning business manager Louise involved, as well as myself, our GIS manager Phil, and our development analyst Caroline and T-level apprentice Max, that were the key members of that. And we was able to, and we had the engagement with the planning service to bring in different staff as and when we needed. We had at the time, when we first signed up or applied for the ODP, we were just implementing a new planning system through Arcus Global. So we've been through a lot of training through that to get our guys upskilled to be able to deliver new services. One of the reasons we went with Arcus was the scalability and the ability for us to adapt the system to bring in new ways of working. And we also assessed through the programme our training needs within the service. Excuse me. As to what we needed to focus on, and we've done that sort of via coffee catch-ups with the service. So our successes, our main success is really with the data sets. We've provided all of the data sets that were requested. We identified what data needs to go in there and addressed any missing information, and from that spurred us on to create a corporate open data platform. So we wanted to be more transparent with our data and people to have access to that. So we built an in-house platform within our website. With regards to the sessions, we participated in the majority of sessions organised by ODP. Some great days out on networking and understanding what problems are shared around the different authorities. We completed our DPMA, and that we used that to design our action plan. What we initially wanted to do, as we were just going through that transformation, we wanted to kind of align the two projects to make sure that we were getting the best out of both worlds. So we used that to kind of inform any gaps that we had. I think from an opportunity point of view, personally, I was asked to help judge on the PropTech Innovation Challenge, and that stemmed from the work that we've been doing with the ODP. So that was really good to be involved in that. And there's just this last section here. Just wanted to give a shout out to the community managers. I nearly put this on the next page, but I didn't think they'd be very happy with me, so I'll stuck it on this one. You'll see why in a minute. Why they won't be very happy, but anytime you've had a problem, the guys have kind of stepped in to help and bridge that gap and put us in touch with the right people to get that resolved.
Thank you, Ben. We're going to pay you later, by the way.
Yeah, no worries. Bank details are in the post.
Okay, thank you, mate.
Okay, yeah, so the reason I nearly put it on here for challenges, because if we've had any challenges, they've actually helped with that, but they're not challenges in themselves. So some of the challenges that we've had around capacity and competing priorities. A few projects have come online at the same time, like the HMLR integration project. So the same staff needed to work on both. So that was a bit of a challenge. I think with regards to the data, extracting the information was quite a challenge with just how we had saved that data. So for instance, Article 4 directions are all old PDF documents, and needed someone with a level of planning knowledge to be able to decipher them and pull them into actual recognisable codes. And also our TPOs are plotted individually, so we might have had a clash of references, so we've had to go through that and split that out. So that was another challenge as well. And I think finally, time was always a challenge. Time flies when you're having fun, and it always seems the month notes sort of came round, and it's making sure that we had something worthwhile to add to those month notes. Okay, our plans for the future. So we're looking at the moment to schedule some time in to revisit that DPMA and rescore us to see where we are now after the work we've done over the last 18 months or so. With our funding, we've not actually spent all of our funding yet, so we're also developing a plan and speaking to the community managers about how we can spend that funding. But we want to continue networking with the group, make sure that we grow our professional network, and somewhere where people can come to other councils and ask us for our experiences, and we can help, but also where others can help us as well. And we're currently building out our phase 2 transformation plan, which will probably take us up to our LGR that we're looking at the moment in 2028. That's all from me. Any questions?
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your journey. And, you know, for me, Ben, that's like an excellent good practice model as well of how you've approached everything and all the teamwork that's gone into this. So well done to you and your team.
Thank you.
We have a question from Karen. Good morning, Karen. Nice to see you.
Morning. Hi, Phil. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Ben, for the presentation. It was really interesting to hear how you've managed to progress in your area over the last sort of few years since you've got the funding. Very similar to where we're at, actually. So I'd be interested to have a chat with you offline about some of the areas, especially around ARCUS.
Yeah.
You mentioned going over to that. We're looking at potential uniform replacements going forward, and we met with one of our neighbouring councils recently who use ARCUS. So I'd be, if that's okay,
more than happy
to hear. And also, can I ask around your staffing on your team? Did you already have some of those existing staffing, or were they funded through the digital improvements grant?
No, that was all existing. We'd previously worked on a sort of transformation project, so we kind of already had that sort of team formed. It was just making sure that we had that engagement to dip into the expertise as and when we need to, and that's where the business improvement manager was key, because actually sitting on the service side could then make sure that those people are engaging, and that's worked really well in the main.
And all that team's within your planning service, not centralised. Is that right?
No, so the majority of that team are in the digital team. So we work in IT.
Right. Okay.
And the
so
majority, So the majority of the work. So when we went live with Arcus, we brought the ownership of the platform into the digital team from the planning service. So our solutions architect was used to work in planning, but just transferred into that team to develop the platform.
Okay, that's great. I'll drop your line on Slack and
of course.
You. Thanks very much.
Welcome. Thank you.
Great, and wonderful to see as well from a show and tell how there's this connection and offline chats as well, and that's exactly what we do show and tells for, or one of the reasons we do them. Thank you, Karen. That's great engagement and questions. Any other questions for Ben, please? Do pop your hand up if you have anything. There was also a comment from Arthur Clark as well, just on a point you'd made, Ben, and it's at least you had PDFs. I had to scan paper files found in a dusty folder no one had looked in for years. So, yeah, sorry to hear that, Arthur. Not great. I can imagine that took a lot of time to get through as well.
I feel your pain, Arthur, but before we had the PDFs, we had that. And I'm sure everyone else did as well.
Yeah, I bet most people who've been around for a while can relate. And then Robert has also said, yes, memories of scanning hundreds of paper maps. So, Ben, you've possibly opened a few old wounds, but it's the reality, isn't it? Good morning, Liam. Nice to see you. Have you got a question for Ben?
Good morning. Yeah, I just wanted to know what the kind of timeline of the journey going from an iDocs product to Arcus, like the migration of the databases, how long that took really, and how painful or not it was.
So it took us about 14 months in total, from the time that we knew that we was moving away, to go through procurement and then that implementation as well. I think all data migrations are quite painful. I think we learned a lot from our initial one in planning. We've also similarly done one with reg services afterwards for licensing, not the easiest thing to do in the world, but actually worthwhile doing that kind of spring clean of data before you do that. But again, happy to have a more in-depth conversation offline with you, Liam, if you want, about actually the whys and wherefores.
Yeah, that might be
pits
really
and troughs.
useful. And the other question on the back of that was, did you have two systems running concurrently during, at the end of it, or did you just kind of do a cost?
No, it was kind of a switch one off and switch the other one on. Okay. So yeah, not concurrently, no. But yeah, it was kind of a trying to think of the right word without being rude, but it was a rude awakening, I think, is probably a thing lots of people running around after switchover, but actually there was a bit of pain to begin with, but actually worthwhile in the end.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks so much, Ben. It was really useful.
No problem.
Fantastic. Thank you for your question, Liam. Any final questions from Ben? No, that's great. Well, can we all give Ben a emoji reaction round of applause, please? That was fantastic, and thank you very much, Ben. And once again, apologies for asking you to present at such short notice.
Thanks.
Amazing. Thank you. That was great. So, Navil, we have you with us from Surrey Heath. Good morning.
Morning. I'm not sure if my presentation will be as snazzy as Ben's, but I'll give it a go. I think
it will be. It will be, I'm sure.
Warn you in advance, my toddler might run in at any point. So yeah, apologies in advance just in case. So I'm Navil, speaking from Surrey Heath Borough Council. I'm one of the team leaders in the development management team, and my career has been completely focused on urban planning. I was a team principal planning officer here up until recently, so I've just assumed this team leader role and taken on this project. Who are we? Well, Surrey Heath is located in the southeast of England. We are one of the smallest boroughs in the country at 95 square kilometres, with nearly half of that being greenbelt land. Given the extent of the greenbelt, as you can imagine, we have a lot of trees, and something that the council takes a lot of pride in, as it's in all the recruitment videos and packs I ever see, is that we're the most treed borough in the country. When I started, I believe there was a stat where we had the highest tree canopy cover per square meters in all of Europe, but they've removed that from all the presentations and whatnot, so must have lost that record. Living amongst all those trees are 89,000 residents, and we are one of the more affluent areas in the country, as well as one of the eldest in terms of population. We are due to become part of the West Surrey District Authority as part of the government plans for local government reorganisation. So there are many changes afoot and a lot of uncertainty within the borough at the moment, which isn't quite helpful. But it's also why projects like this are quite helpful, and it will help our transition going forward, as well as building our resilience for any challenges we might face. Whilst we are one of the smallest boroughs in the country, we do pack a punch. We are home to a number of big businesses. That includes the headquarters of Krispy Kreme, although I've never seen a Krispy Kreme shop here. There's also billion-pound companies such as Gordon Murray Design, the supercar developer, which cars run up to a minimum price of around 1.2 million, if you're lucky enough. BAM Nuttall, the engineering giants, UCB Pharmaceuticals, the pharmaceutical company which specializes in rare diseases, amongst other matters. And we have Netflix Filming Studios, whose extended studios I'm hoping to gain planning permission for next week. We're also home to the England Rugby Training Ground, with the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh living just up the road. Having been a former military town, there are a number of barracks and grenade ranges in the area as well. And we have Sandhurst Military Academy. If you walk around Camberley, you'll very likely bump into a former Gurkha. Fittingly, we are also home to the National Rifle Association. Finally, we have our own little airport at Farnborough, which can accommodate light aircraft. Hopefully that gives you a little flavour of what Surrey Heath Borough Council is about. So I thought I'd start off with the challenges first and foremost. So when we took on the digital planning project, we had the head of development and one of the development management project leaders as part of the team. I think initially there was a bit of an underestimation of the work required to take on and complete this project, particularly in terms of time resource, how many different people are going to be required to input, and in particular the sort of technical side of the matters. At the time, the feeling was probably that the work could be undertaken solely from DM officers, but I think they quickly found out that that wasn't the case. It then got worse before getting better. Some internal restructures meant that the head of development now assumed a much larger job profile, and they couldn't input as they would have liked. And so my predecessor, Ian Williams, who you might have met, was essentially acting as a one-man army. Whilst he did do a fantastic job, I'm sure he'll admit as well that progress was probably a little bit slower than what it could have been if we had gotten more people involved early on. The other issue that became abundantly clear that I'm sure others have ran into was not only that the format and sorting of our data being in a poor state, but much of the data was out of date. There was loads of errors, there was loads of overlaps of the older redundant data. For example, given our status as one of the most treed boroughs in the country, you can imagine how many individual and group tree preservation orders we have. Going through the data, we found that a number of the TPOs are outdated or superseded, with a number of overlaps between the older area TPOs and the individual TPOs. So, for example, there's a number of trees which are not protected showing up as protected as part of an area TPO and vice versa. So that means, when we go through validation, we're asking for tree reports when there's not one. When I'm signing off applications, I'm looking onto our sort of GIS today saying, oh, there's a TPO there, why isn't that being considered and whatnot? But in reality, it's not actually there. This, on top of not having a consistent tree officer in place, hasn't really helped us go through that data with the fine tooth comb that we'd have liked to do so. But onto the good news. So fortunately, since I have taken over in around mid-October, firstly, the digital planning team have been very helpful, and the resources on Slack have helped me bring me up to speed despite a few teething problems. One of the first actions we took, and I think we recognised, given the work that Ian was doing by himself, was to establish a team. So there are now 4 of us directly involved in this, and there's also ancillary support from other colleagues. We're all in different areas of the council, which means we've all got different areas of expertise and have different opinions on the way to move forward. But I think that quite helps us and unites us in somewhat. We do have now regular meetings between ourselves and on track to meeting our goals. We have successfully managed to cleanse some of the data and actually made it more helpful for the end goal. So, for example, with the listed building data, on the face of it, we could have just published all the sites as per the listings on the records that we have for them. This on paper probably would have met the goal of uploading the data set. And for all intents and purposes, it's accurate data. However, thinking about how this data would be used and really who it was for, which is for customers, planning agents and planners ourselves, we realized that publishing the data in that manner didn't quite resolve the issue as a whole. So by plotting the sites as per the records, we'd be showing the curtilages of the listed buildings to match that of the red line boundaries, as shown in land registry records. But for the purposes of planning, the curtilage of the site and the red line boundary aren't quite the same as set out in the Historic England guidance. So it was very important for us to correctly establish the curtilages of each site, as then going forward, when we do validate applications and assess applications, we're making better informed decisions. So we don't have a in-house heritage officer and outsource advice currently, which is obviously a cost to the council. So on that basis, when we're sort of validating and asking for advice from the heritage officers, we need to be sure that we actually do need that advice. So getting this piece of work correct was actually very important to us, and would help us save costs in the longer run. Sorry. So we do have a number of listed buildings in the borough, and many of them, being in rural sites, are very difficult to access. And without that dedicated heritage officer, cleansing the data wasn't quite a simple task. So we couldn't quite do this as a desktop study, and it meant we had to visit each site and assess it by ourselves. Now that needed technical expertise, so it was quite a nice team effort. We got all the planning officers together, gave them about, I think it was 5 to 10 sites each to do, and in line with the sort of Historic England guidance, we made rough assessments on what the curtilages of the sites actually were. That was plotted on paper, and then we scanned it through, put it through, and now that data set's been uploaded. So there is an acknowledgement across the team that data is now a lot more reliable for everyone, and I think indirectly it also helped give us all a little bit of training on a area that maybe we're not all as strong in. We also managed to publish the data sets for the conservation areas, which we have a number of. I don't think that was quite the most difficult task, as the data was correct. We also published the brownfield land data set, although checking today, there seems to be a small error with the hyperlink, so that's something I will need to resolve. In terms of next steps, so we needed to obtain legal advice for our Article 4 directions, many of which were redundant. Checking the legal status of them and the enforceability of that. So the funding directly helped us with getting that legal advice, which is great. I'm in the process of drafting a report to full council to agree to remove the now defunct Article 4 directions. once this is agreed and signed off, we can hopefully relatively quickly cleanse the data and upload the correct data set, which will be helpful for the wider public, agents and planning officers as well. As touched on before, we are working towards cleansing the data for the TPOs, which is currently probably the most demanding task that we have, particularly given the potential legal implications. It's important that we get it right. We are just about to appoint a new tree officer, which is great, and he's been made aware of the work that needs to be done. We also will again need to involve all the other planning officers, to help us cleanse that data. So that might mean going out on site and checking there's still a tree there where it's plotted on the data. Because many of them don't quite exist anymore. In terms of use of the funding, this will directly support additional officer time, which we will need. And we're also sort of looking in to see if there is anything specific in terms of the TPOs, especially, that could assist us given how much work we know that's going to take. And that's it. So happy to take on any questions. I think it would have been useful if Ian had presented this before he left, given how long he had worked on the project. But hopefully that's a good summary of where we are, who we are, and the next steps. Thanks.
Thank you. It's an amazing summary. You would have thought that you've been in the team for a lot longer than you have, so you've done them proud, Neville. Well done. Clearly some massive challenges then for you in Surrey Heath. Just letting us know the amount of trees that you've got. Obviously, there's a massive challenge in itself. Thank you very much. Have we got any questions? I think there's been some really good stuff in that presentation. I'm sure even people with not the same amount of trees can really relate to the challenges around TPOs. But has anyone got any questions or anything they would like to clarify? One thing from me was you touched on some of the legal challenges. You're able to just elaborate a little bit more what they are, just really for my own benefit. I'm sure there might be others on the call as well, but just to understand that a little bit more would be really helpful from my perspective.
I think it's more just being sort of challenged as to whether, if there's incorrect data that we're publishing and then we're requesting data on, reports or whatever it is based on that aspect, and then later to find out, that's not, that tree doesn't exist or whatever it is, then, that might be a cost implication and appeal stage or for whatever it is. So, it's just making sure we're being careful in publishing the correct data, because I think right now, we did have a talk and say, can we just publish all the data as we've got it? And then maybe cleanse it as we work through it, given how big of a task it is. But there's a bit of a risk with that, of course. Not everyone's going to be aware that not all these, trees don't exist or they're not covered by the tree preservation order. For example, I had a site recently where report was put through to me, and in the report the officers set out that there's 2 TPO trees that were removed just before the planning application came in. So I was like, okay, I don't want to sign these off. What's going on here? We need to take some action. And then having discussed it with the tree officer, who was fortunately just on his last week, he said, well, actually these TPOs aren't worth the paper they're written on, so we don't need to worry about it, and that's fine. So in that sense it did help, but we could have, we were potentially looking to refuse that application on that basis, and then I'm sure when it went to appeal we would have been in a difficult position. So that's the type of example.
No, that just really highlights just how challenging and complex it is then. Okay, well, thank you very much. Tom?
Again, great stuff, Navil, and it was again a question around tree preservation orders, and it was something that somebody mentioned around potentially one of the NLPO about some learning development and like sort of getting a sense of like what level of expertise a planning officer would need to have to know about TPOs. Is it a really specialized area, or is that something that generally a planning officer 2 or 3 years into their job would know about?
I mean, there is guidance as to what sort of supports a TPO. So you know, I've had it in the past where a whole woodland was covered by an area TPO, and I've argued that, you know, it didn't actually meet the test to be one anymore. It did at the time. And what you'll find, and I'm sure other councils will find this, is that a lot of TPOs came out historically simply because of public pressure, or, you know, seeking to restrict development rather than actually meeting the test for being a TPO. So I think it is, a couple of years experience from a planning officer. They should be able to make that assessment and make that judgment. But it's about the process. Then, you know, you have to make an application to remove the TPO and whatnot. So that is it's just a very time-consuming task more than anything, I think, is the issue.
I can see Ella King nodding away there. Yeah, it's quite close to your heart, but that's great. Thanks, Neville. That's a really interesting insight for us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Just a comment here from Arthur. Good morning. So, and he was just saying, sorry if you've already covered this. I missed a bit of the presentation, but don't you need the Secretary of State to sign off on removing Article 4s? I think we decided to leave them in place rather than go through all of the effort of removing them. So is that one more for us? Possibly. I don't know the answer to that. Tom, is that anything?
No, that's beyond my knowledge set, but be interesting conversation. Happily talk to one of our actual planning colleagues to check on that.
Yeah. Right. Any other questions for Neville? Okay, well, excellent stuff. Thank you. Can we all give Neville also a emoji reaction round of applause, please? That was great, really interesting and really helpful, and great work again to you and your colleagues at Surrey Heath, and good luck with the pending local government restructure changes ahead of you. Keep us posted on how all of that goes. Okay. Right, just sort of final things then, just summing up, we can see there's been a little bit of sort of chat around Slack, so we'll pick those up. I know Carly has sort of said feel free to get in touch with her on Slack, but if there's any queries, do approach us community managers in Slack, and we can help with any other queries there. And then final thing from me, as you know, we never miss an opportunity to plug our next event, which is in Keswick on the 26th of March. We're hosted by the Lake District up there at the Pencil Factory. I'm delighted to say we've had 100 LPA registrations, which is amazing, given that we appreciate it's not necessarily the easiest location if you're in more of the south of the country. Nevertheless, you know, we'd like to visit all parts of England, so we're excited to be there in March. Just a very small few places remain, so if you are thinking that you would like to be there and you can get the time away from home and work, then do register, and I would recommend registering sooner rather than later, because we are pretty much at capacity. There's room for just a very small number of people now, but we are going to be likely to be closing registrations very soon. So just for anyone who hasn't seen the link to sign up and you're interested, I'm just giving it one last plug. If there is no other business, and I can just all give you 10 seconds to raise your hands, I will bring today's show and tell to a close. But I'll give you all just 10 seconds in case anybody wants to just raise anything else while you have us all together today. Okay, no, not seeing anything. Well, thank you again to our presenters today. So Ben, Neville, you've done us proud. Great presentations. We'll be uploading those to the ODP hub. They should be available by the end of the week. Thank you all very much for your engagement and joining us this morning, and we look forward to seeing you in due course. Have a good rest of the day, everybody, and thanks again. Take care.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Cheers, Phil. See you later, everyone.